This is Bad Movies We Love, part of the Shice Podcast Network.
If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Hello, bad movie lovers. Welcome to Good Movies We Love, a new part of the Bad Movies We Love experience. I am your host, Nick Scheist.
The master of this stupid stuff!
As you're probably well aware, we've done quite a lot of stupid stuff on this show. But the great thing about being my own boss here is that I can do whatever I want, and I want to talk about some good movies too. So that is why I allowed a space for some good movies we love. And I hope that if you push play on this episode, you can still hang out and have a good time, because the show is basically exactly the same. We're just talking about something that is outside of my regular scoring criteria. The plan is not to ever have it consume the show completely, but I think I would like to include maybe one a month, as long as it's on brand and on theme for what we're doing. And since we are doing Women's Month here on the show in March, I was joined by filmmaker Josie Robinson and film podcaster Felicia Maroni to talk about Andrew Fleming's The Craft on its 30th anniversary. So, recite an incantation for Manon and sit back and enjoy the episode. For the first two acts of this film, I was like, this is a very uplifting story about these young women that discovered magic, and like the power of sisterhood has made all their lives better. And then Battle Royale.
They're high school students. Maybe communication isn't their strongest suit.
Is and can be, though I don't find that to be a bad thing, corny.
I love that they sort of progressively increase their fashion IQ as their witch powers increase.
For some reason, anytime a movie features Don't Fear the Reaper, I automatically like it more.
But now that you're saying this, I'm like seeing the movie in a completely different light. I was like, wait a minute.
Girls, watch out for those weirdos.
We are the weirdos, mister.
We're in for a treat. This is Good Movies We Love that is still surprisingly lower rated than I expected. You know, this is a movie I grew up with, and just I've never met anyone that didn't like it, or I've never heard anyone really speak ill of it. So I didn't expect it to be as low, but it is technically above the sort of like midline range where I would safely say this is a good movie. Everybody that actually reached out to me when I mentioned this movie said it was a good movie, or it was even the best of the movies that I mentioned. So I know we're going to have a good time with this. I had a good time rewatching it, but I want to introduce you both. Felicia, you've been here. Welcome back. Mm-hmm. Josie, you've never been here before, but you're here now. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
The only difference that this structure has is that the title is different. This is just Good Movies We Love, but we do it exactly the same as Bad Movies We Love. So we go through all of the details, all of the trivia, and everything looks exactly the same, but it allows me to talk about movies that I would never get a chance to talk about otherwise. And both of you were very quick to respond. I think, I didn't even make it out of like the first hour or so after having mentioned this film when I heard from you two. And Josie, since, you've never been on the show before, what about The Craft, made you just jump at the opportunity to talk about it?
I think for being a cult classic, I think it's just vastly underrated. I don't think it gets talked about enough. like for instance, it being Women's History Month, I saw people talking about like, especially like women in horror or women in this. And I know this movie's horror adjacent, but I didn't see anyone talk about The Craft, and I was like, I think that's um just like such a missed opportunity because it's all about women and they're so cool and badass and I don't know. I was just like so excited that like to see it pop up and that someone like wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, it's the 30th anniversary. So like I get that it's not like I don't know, the 25th seems like, oh, it's a quarter century, like it gets more attention. Specialized like DVD and Blu-ray releases tend to come out around 25th and stuff too. But it is still surprising that yes, in Women's History Month here in March, that this movie isn't getting its shine for its 30th. But Felicia, you know, you mentioned that like this movie like is your like personality a little bit. I mean, like your handle is half black goth, right? So
Yeah.
it lines up.
Yeah, this is one of those that we would just rent from the video store growing up all the time, and then eventually had it on VHS, and I would just always, when it was my turn to pick a movie, I'd be like, "We're watching The Craft." Um, Definitely grew up goth enthusiast, goth adjacent, and sometimes full-time goth in my youth and teenage years, and it just was like I took a lot of fashion inspo from this film and was like, I'm gonna become a Wiccan because of this. I was too lazy to fully go through with it, but I always was an enthusiast for it, so this movie means a lot. And I can't believe I've never spoken uh in a format like this about it. So I'm very, very excited to do it today.
Well, so am I. I mean, this surprisingly was like a pretty big film, like in my household too. And I feel like I liked it more than my sisters did, even though like I grew up in a house all sisters. This was probably just a little bit too mature for them at the time. And looking back at it now, like I never viewed this movie as a rated R movie, but it is. And so maybe that was like something that kind of like held them back, and they're slightly younger generation. But this is one that definitely was on VHS in the household, and then was also a movie that like as soon as it was on cable and just like working its way around, it was like, oh yeah, The Craft again. So I watched this movie like quite a few times around like 1997 to 1999 range. So like right at the tail end of grade school, beginning of high school. And yeah, I'm surprised that it sort of got relegated to cult status. And I think the thing that sort of stuck in my head most while watching it this time, I was like, this is like the anti-Clueless. And like Clueless has like a great reputation. Everybody loves it. I don't necessarily know that like The Craft has a bad one, but they feel like sort of two halves of the same whole, like from that era, like both high school stories, like both central female characters, but like one is all bubbly and fun and very like colorful and very rich, where you get The Craft and it's like this is all like sort of like much darker stories about the things that these young women are going through in high school. And so I I never really thought of it that way. And I think Clueless is what, 94, so a couple of years before this. And seeing that Alicia Silverstone actually auditioned for the role here of Sarah, I was like, that would have been so weird, because it's like, what happened? Like you just moved into another like high school movie where you're the lead again. Like had she been maybe cast as like Christine Taylor's character, then okay, then this makes sense for her. But like that's too small for her at that time. But
It has a clueless actor in it. So
yeah, it's just kind of like an interesting, I would say, time capsule film of a movie that sort of had the freedom in the mid 90s to tell this kind of story, be a rated R story that is about high school kids, but also like have that be the target demo still. And I don't know that you necessarily have a lot of success stories like that since, right? Like Scream is the same year as this and sort of has a a much larger cultural impact overall, where obviously, you know, there's a new one of those in theaters. So the fact that this movie was popular, was number one at the box office the weekend that it came out, has the kind of cult following that it has, but then really never materialized into much other than the Legacy sequel, which is 2020, which I didn't even see. So it is kind of sad to see that the Legacy sort of ends with this film, but also, you know, yesterday in our film club discussion, Vanya and I are both very adamant about our sort of adherence to the fact that endings are important. And so not turning this into like a cash grab machine, I think gives it its staying power. And looking back at it, yeah, it's a really, I think, important mid 90s film.
No, I agree. I didn't even realize it was rated R. I
Mhm.
think,
Yeah.
you know, when you're kids, I feel like we probably watched a lot more rated R stuff than we realized. Um, but watching it again, you know, I do watch this, I do rewatch this quite regularly. It had been a couple years. I was like, I could see uh maybe this not getting away with a younger audience nowadays because things have become a little bit more conservative again. So I don't think it would get a lower rating today.
That's fair. I mean, it doesn't have gore, really. It
Mm-mm.
doesn't have sex or nudity. I mean, there's like a little bit, but not egregious. There's no actual nudity that I can recall. But the themes are dark, right? Like suicidal ideation, sexual assault.
Mhm.
I don't know what's going on with Bonnie. Like I don't know. They never explain how she got her burn scars. Part of me was like, well, the sort of characters that they've drawn here, I was like, did she like try to like, you know, kill her parents or something? And like she set the house on fire. So like I'm making up a whole backstory for this girl. Because they all like have very sort of decided backstories that help sort of cast them as like underdogs and as sympathetic characters. And for a movie in the 90s to really be like, hey, we want to tell like female stories. And like, granted, it was, you know, written, directed, developed all by men. I'm curious, like, from your perspective, how do you feel that this like holds up as a women's story?
Hmm. It's it's weird because you know, just tracking back to something you mentioned, how you don't know anyone who doesn't like this. And for ages I didn't until I looked on Letterboxd recently and I was like, most of my friends have rated it quite low. I was like, I don't feel comfortable with this rating that you're giving this film. But also like some of the reviews, I was like, okay, I can get what you're seeing. It feels like for most people saying like stereotypes of individual women. But I mean, you have to give it a bit of grace also to given the time. And I think it still pushes levels like boundaries. I know we're only getting these characters really on surface level, except for our lead getting a little bit more of her life. But like Rachel True's character, we don't even see her family at all, which
Yeah.
I think is probably one of the more problematic things in this film. Unfortunately. But I I'm not super, you know, upset or perturbed by the portrayals of women, despite the fact that they are, you can still kind of tell it's written by a man, but I think there was some effort made. At least that's how I view it. And maybe it's just me being like extremely biased um on this. And I'd be curious to see what they do in the I'm kind of curious, but not curious what they do in the remake of this film. Because I think it was directed by maybe a woman.
I think so, yeah.
Uh, and if they made any significant changes. But yeah.
I don't know. What about you, Josie?
I actually just rewatched it this morning.
Nice.
Yeah. And so I was actually thinking about that and it as a woman because I was looking at like a film by this whatever and it's all men. And I think the one thing I took away from it on this rewatch was that the only way, like, and I agree, I don't think that it like does an injustice necessarily to women. I think that it does a pretty good job overall, other than like I definitely agree about Rachel True's character, especially because she's one of my favorites, and so I kind of wish there was more. But towards the end, the way that it ends, I think, is fascinating because in other stories, especially throughout like history, where women are called witches or compared to witches, the way that it ends with them not being, friends and stuff is something I think I would have changed. And that's where to me it feels as though like, oh yeah, a man wrote this. A man was because I feel like that's actually anti-coven, anti-witch, which
Yes.
I they talk about. They're like, oh,
Mhm.
witches can't leave their coven, and I'm like, yeah. So I feel like if a woman was in charge, she would have definitely had them make amends, maybe be there for Nancy a little more. Just like and little things like that are the only ways that I really see where I'm like, this is. I can tell that a man wrote a man wrote this in a woman was not in charge. Um, but like no, other than that, um, I think it does a pretty good job aside from, the stuff that Felicia pointed out, but
Yeah, I feel like for most of the movie, like up until it turns, and then it's like, okay, we have to have an inciting
yeah.
incident for them to
Mm.
like fight. Up
Yeah.
until that point, I'm like, this is a pretty uplifting story, honestly. Like they're all kind of outcasts. They found each other through their friendship. They're able to sort of like get all of their lives on track in not necessarily the worst ways. I mean, like shitty, abusive, alcoholic guy has a heart attack and dies. Okay, like worse things have happened, I guess, you know? So I'm like, yeah, this is all going very well. And if you just end the movie at that point, it's like, oh, what a happy story.
Yep.
But yeah, no, we have to have magic battle at the end. And there was a lot of stuff that was ultimately removed from the film that seems like, in hindsight, I feel like it makes the story more whole. And I would have liked to see it. But also, this is an hour 41 in 1996. And if you're making this almost 2 hours, like you're really asking a lot of the audience at that time. But
Yeah.
since we mentioned that this was basically like an all men's team putting this together, I want to take a look at the film file and take a look at these details because directed by Andrew Fleming, written by Peter Filardi and Andrew Fleming, stars Robin Tunney, Fairuza Balk, Neve Campbell, and Rachel True, but featuring Skeet Ulrich, Christine Taylor, Breckin Meyer. Cinematography by Alexander Gruzinski, edited by Jeff Freeman, production design by Marek Dabrowski, and costumes by Deborah Everton. So it wasn't necessarily all men, but basically in all of the sort of key components, production, writing, direction, and not entirely like uncommon for a movie from the 1990s either. But like you said, I think all things considered, it does a mostly pretty good job. I think where it misses, and maybe this is why sort of the rating is where it falls, and I'm not 100% sure. We'll cover that in Critics Corner and we'll see what they have to say. But it seems like that inciting incident, like the need to make them turn on each other, sort of only exists in the vacuum of like, this is a movie and people want to see the fight, right? Like it has to be like the moment we're introduced to Fairuza Balk in this movie, it's like she's intensely more goth than the rest of the girls. And I mean, like her wardrobe is amazing though. I mean, she looks the part and she's just like more intense than everybody else. So it's kind of like you're already planting the seeds of like she was the leader. The new girl comes in with the actual power, and now there's like this power struggle. And so like you're already setting up the showdown in the end at that point. And I just felt like this all could have sort of been resolved with the conversation. And some of that stuff like was edited out of the film, which is why I was like, I kind of maybe want that in there so that I can see these conversations and see why particularly Rachel and Neve are like, why are you guys just like evil all of a sudden? Right? Like it doesn't add up to me. I get that it's high school, right? Like, and you're maybe you're going to be in a bad mood or something. And like, maybe there's like the mean girls in high school and like you're trying to really sort of like separate that out. But up until all of a sudden, it's like a very hard turn. There wasn't anything that sort of led me to believe that that should happen. If anything, it should have been the three of them against the psycho witch who is now empowered with like the spirit and is like enjoying killing everybody. That would be like the scary thing. So I feel like just even a slight reworking just to like, I don't know, recalibrate and reset the reasoning behind why the sort of breakup is happening would have gone a long way in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And sometimes I just have to chalk it up to the cuts, edits, but also they're high school students. Maybe communication isn't their strongest suit, obviously, but
Yeah,
there
that's
is like
fair.
a one very quick throwaway line that happens when they're driving. And they're kind of dangerously driving, and Bonnie's character just says, we've been, I'm misquoting, but she says, we've had a hard time leading up to this. We want to have fun. Now we can finally have fun. We got what we wanted, and they're kind of drunk with power. I do agree. Probably would have been better to have them turn around on Nancy's character, but then it's also they are the coven mentality, and technically, Sarah is the last member of the group. They've all known each other. My assumption is they grew up together, or they've at least been friends for a lot longer than they've obviously known Sarah. So they're probably more willing to stick to one another and probably afraid of Nancy. Rightfully so.
Yeah, no, I think so. And one of those deleted scenes was Sarah going to the other two and trying to like explain to them that like Nancy's dangerous and she's out of control and we need to do this like binding spell on her. And then Nancy sort of flipping that on them. And then we get like parts of that because there's the scene in the bathroom where they confront her. And that sort of is after the scene that was deleted. And then we have the scene of Sarah trying the binding spell out in the woods or at her pool, whatever, at her mansion, a dilapidated mansion. We've got those two scenes that are like all part of the same actual like story element, but they like snipped out one part of it. So yeah, I would have liked more. And I want to circle back on the Rachel True stuff later because there's a lot of interesting stuff that happened with her joining the project. But I think now is a good time to set the table. And I will just look at a little bit of the production notes here. So the craft started as a collaboration between producer Douglas Wick and screenwriter Peter Filardi, with Wick wanting to create a film about the high school experience blended with witchcraft, and Filardi doing the research and the writing. 85 total actresses screen tested for the four main roles, including Angelina Jolie, Scarlett Johansson, and Alicia Silverstone. But it was Rachel True and Fairuza Balk who were actually cast first. Then Robin Tunney followed, and Neve Campbell joined last. The production enlisted a practicing Wiccan named Pat Devon to be the on-set advisor for the film, and she wrote all the incantations to ensure the production was as faithful and respectful as possible. Filming began on May 1st, 1995, with shooting taking place in and around Los Angeles, and wrapped on July 19th, 1995. The movie was then released theatrically on May 3rd of 1996, opening number one at the box office with just under $7 million. And according to Box Office Mojo, The Craft is the 11th highest grossing film since 1980 dealing with witches. It's a very odd list. I don't know what the other 10 ahead of The Craft are at that point. But the film hit DVD and VHS on July 2nd of 97 and was re-released on special edition DVD in September of 2000, later debuting on Blu-ray in October of 2009. Subsequently, Shout Factory then put out a special collector's edition in 2019, which was praised for all its special features but panned for its image quality. So it was then re-released again by Shout Factory on 4K UHD in 2022 for the film's 25th anniversary, with a fresh 4K scan from the original negative. And here we are, on the 30th anniversary, talking about how impactful this movie, I think, has been to a lot of people. And Josie, you had mentioned that, this isn't a movie that's popped up a lot during sort of conversations this month. And I don't know necessarily why that is. But from your perspective, what was the first time that you saw this movie? Was this something that you saw in theaters? Was this something that you sort of ended up with the VHS for from the video store?
I'm glad you said that because you guys were talking about how you watched it growing up, and I did not. I actually watched this for the first time in 2019.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I knew what it was, obviously, but I did not grow up watching a lot of horror or horror adjacent. The closest I got to that was my love for The Mummy and Tremors and stuff like that. But I was not. This was just not on my radar. It was not something that I was ever shown. However, I think I would have loved it because I was shown it in 2019 by my now husband, who loved it, and his sisters loved it, and they showed it to me, and I just immediately loved it. I was obsessed with it. And now I've seen it once, if not twice a year, every year since. I usually watch it in October as a rewatch because it just feels very fall and witchy. And it just gets better every single time. But I am very new to it. I know 2019 is actually now a really long time, but no, it's it's a newer thing for me. But it's instantly. That's how much I really liked it and admired it, though, is that even though I saw it so recently, it instantly became a favorite to mine, and I will defend it now forever, honestly. So I pitch it to people, especially people who I think it's a really good intro to horror. But no, I'm constantly singing its praises, but I have definitely not been watching it very so I'm just glad I discovered it. I wish I had been watching it since I was a kid. I think that teenage me would have really liked this. So
Well, I mean, look, it's never too late to come around on the craft. And it wasn't even a movie that I had initially planned on including in the stuff that I was doing this month. But I was like, hey, now that I can talk about good movies whenever I want and I can bend the rules because it's my show anyway. So I might as well. And so, made a last minute decision, and I'm glad I did. This was also one of, I don't know, Witches of Eastwick was way before this, but maybe late 80s, early 90s. And then the other one was Hocus Pocus, which was big in my household as well. But that was the witches are bad, and they're these ancient, horrible beings. And it's of course, that's very kid coded and a lot more kid friendly. I'm just trying to think of aside from maybe practical magic, is there a movie where the witches are even portrayed in a positive light at all that sort of was a mainstream film? And so, like I said, for the first 2 acts of this film, I was this is a very uplifting story about these young women that discovered magic, and the power of sisterhood has made all their lives better. And then battle royale to the death at the end. So yeah, it sort of is maybe the one movie that I can think of off the top of my head where witchcraft and being Wiccan is a positive.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is again showing my age, but another movie I watched at the time a lot growing up, which was also a huge influence on me. Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost.
Okay.
They have a band in there of 3 witches called the Hex Girls, and they help Scooby and the gang.
Okay, cool.
So that's the one that came to mind. I was like, we've got one other. They're never the villains in that. So
Okay.
I don't know, Scooby-Doo got it right, in my opinion.
I'm not kidding. That is exactly what came to mind when he was talking about
Right.
I was through every witch movie I'd seen, and I was like, no, they're all evil. They're bad. They're bad. They're bad. They're bad. And I immediately was thinking about, I had just recently watched Scooby-Doo. I want to say it's The Legend of the Vampire. and the Hex Girls are in it. And I was like, the Hex Girls are never doing anybody bad. They're just out here looking incredible, constantly helping the gang. So that actually, I think that is the right answer.
The only other one that I can think of that comes to mind is, not to like spread the Nicolas Cage agenda, which I never stopped doing, but Claire Foy is not the villain of that story, although she is captive and is sort of like portrayed as an evil witch by the rest of the people in the film. And sort of like that movie is, it's doing a lot of dumb things, but also sort of addressing the notion of, hey, like this witch and witches are evil. But really, like, the more the story goes on, the more you realize that, oh yeah, like this isn't actually the case. So yeah, it's not super common. And I think that's why, like, maybe the craft really has the kind of like legacy that it does, because I mean, even the poster for the film, right? Like, it's a great poster. It looks like they have a band or something. Like, it'd be a great, album cover. So yeah, I really want maybe more of those kinds of stories. But I want to look at yeah, go for it.
Oh no, very, very quickly, because it came to mind. It's again animated, so maybe they have to be. They're only good in animated ones. Is Kiki's Delivery Service?
Oh yeah, that's true.
She's also a witch.
That's true. Yeah, she just makes sure your packages get there on time. Like, yeah, that's a good one. Okay, let's look at the tail of the tape, because this is not, as I said, a bad movie, but not as well regarded as I thought. It has an IMDb score of 6.5, respectable. Metascore of 55, though. Rotten Tomatoes critic score of 57. Audience score of 65. Letterbox 3.6. Very solid Letterbox score. Google thumbs up rating of 83%, though. So 83% of just average humans that give a thumbs up rating to a movie on Google, those people are craft supporters. And so that gives us a Bad Movies We Love total score of 66.1 out of 100. So just north of the bubble membrane, but safely, I think, in good movie territory. But I want to ask you both, Josie, I'll ask you first, like, if you had to hazard a guess as to what the detractor's biggest issue with the craft is, what would you say that is?
I was trying to decide this when I was rewatching it. And the only thing I can come up with is that it is and can be, though I don't find that to be a bad thing, corny and a little over the top at times. Again, I like that about it. But like Nancy, for instance, is a lot at times.
Yeah.
And I could see people like finding that really corny. Like sometimes they'll say a line and I'm like, wow, that is really cheesy. And like I like it, but I can hear like other people like in my ear like saying something negative about it or whatever. So that's really all I could think about is that, that and some of the like CGI. But other than that, I mean, I try to put myself into someone else's shoes, especially because I do like it. But really, I think maybe just it is a little over the top at times, for people. And I also got that from I went and tried to find people who didn't like it, and those were some of the takeaways I saw.
Okay.
From also.
Well, that's fair. I don't know, Felicia, have you heard anything in particular that stands out to you as why people don't like this?
I feel like a lot of people are quite judgmental of teen movies, and only some of them get a pass right off the bat, and others it takes years for them to be loved. Like, I think Clueless was probably loved right off the bat, even though this said it was like number one at the box office when it was released. But I think it's the mix of it being a teen high school movie and the bit of horror. I think if they had gone full horror, people would probably respect it more. And I think it's the balance between the both that people probably are getting the corniness from. But I think it would be an entirely different movie if they're going straight horror. And I think that's why a lot of young kids watch this movie, because they felt like it wasn't an aggressive movie. There's aggressive stuff, but it's still kind of a kids movie.
It,
So I
it's
think it's,
safe,
the corniness. It's
Mm.
safe.
Well, I am also, I'm curious, like, how much of the sort of negative side of the equation has come in subsequent years, because this movie was number one at the box office. I grew up with this movie being well liked and popular and like fairly famous. And so now it's like this movie exists as like a cult classic, which is like, this isn't some movie that like slid under the radar when it came out and only gained a following later in its lifespan. It's like this movie was popular right away. So it is kind of like a weird thing where maybe some of the ways that it handles its feminism, its racial dynamics, maybe some of those things that became more prominent in media discourse since the 90s have affected that. Because I think probably the biggest detractor is that it does sort of fumble, I think, some of its strongest elements in favor of ending the movie in the way that it ends. Because it really seems like, hey, here's an idea for this story. Obviously, there's magic involved, like witches can kind of be scary. We want to end the movie with the showdown. And then so like, how do we work to get there? And so those kind of things, I think, are fair, but also probably weren't the most common criticisms of the film back in 1996.
Yeah, I agree. There is one point that a friend on the Letterboxd put up that I do agree with, but it's only something that you can. I think it's with time and people's minds evolving. Um, he viewed it kind of as a film that was punishing girls and women who were victims themselves, because they all have had injustices happen to them, and they're the only one who gets out kind of unscathed, even though I'm sure there's traumatic things that happened to her, obviously. But with Sarah and the other three are seen as villains in the end, which is the most unfortunate thing in this film. So I agree with that. And I think, again, as we've mentioned, Josie mentioned, if it had been written by women, they would have been able to turn that around and realize that, these girls have gone through some bad stuff.
Yeah, like I don't think you just like haphazardly try to kill yourself, as Sarah did, and they sort of like look at the fact that she slit her wrists, and I don't know that the vocabulary is present at the time to really have that discussion, or at least it wasn't handled in what made it to the screen well. Like you have a character who tried to kill themselves, and it's like, why? Like, seems like, okay, I know she lost her mom, but that was at childbirth. So it's not like she's dealing with that sort of acute trauma phase. She just moved. Okay, she just moved, but these scars are not new, right? So they kind of gloss over that. Part of the thing with Rachel True's story was that like her parents were sort of involved in part of the script at one point, where it was like her parents are just boring. So it's like, oh, they're just like normal boring parents, and she just kind of likes excitement. And like they kind of they reworked the character when she signed on to be part of the film. So I think there may be just a kind of like a lack of depth, but also for a movie in 1996, do we expect it to have that depth? I don't know.
Yeah, no.
I don't know. But we'll leave that as we continue our discussion a little bit more. I want to know. I know you, Felicia, did. I did. Josie, did you write a synopsis haiku for this?
I did.
All right, I'll go first. You're new, so I'm not going to put you on the spotlight first. I kind of struggled with this. I wrote like one, and it was like, this isn't going well. I need to start over. And then I don't even think the one that I came up with is good either. But nonetheless, okay. The new girl in school brings magic to the coven. Fun while it lasted. See? Totally mid.
Fair.
But yeah, fair. Definitely fair. They're just like, there's too much going on in the story for me to be like, okay,
Yeah.
I got 17 syllables to figure this all out. Can't get too clever here. Okay. Felicia, you want to go?
Yeah, mine is like it's only a synopsis really if you've seen the movie. But I was inspired by one of the lines in the movie. So it goes, "Bitches of Eastwick, they will make you lose your hair, so you must beware."
That's good. I like that.
The Bitches of Eastwick line is one of my favorite things in the whole movie.
It's so good.
It's brilliant.
So good.
Yeah, and I like that, obviously there's an awareness of other sort of like witches in pop culture in making this film. Because like sometimes you kind of get like stuck when you're gonna go in like a genre specific direction. Like, do we acknowledge all of the other history of these characters in literature and cinema? Or do we start from scratch and try to like build our own mythos for all of this? And so I found like it's a happy medium here because I don't know if it was ever communicated as clearly on screen up until this point. Like you actually had like an on-set practitioner who was like writing the rituals, you had someone there observing and making sure it was all respectful. So I feel like at least that aspect of it was handled fairly well. But Josie, let's hear what you got for us.
I have to look at mine. So it says, girl joins a coven, friendship shown through witchery. Nancy's still a badass.
Yeah, I like that. Both of those are better than mine, so thank you. Yeah, badass work.
Definitely dramatic, but she's very cool.
Yes.
Probably the coolest looking in the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
The costuming's great. I love that they sort of progressively increase their fashion IQ as their witch powers increase. And I don't know if it's like they're just like making their own clothes out of magic at that point, or they started having money, so they're gonna just like shop instead of trying to shoplift things. But yeah, like what we see on the poster when they all have like style is very cool. And it was also an interesting balance to see where they all started like on their fashion journeys, and to go from that to the end, I think is a very like decided choice. Obviously, I think Deborah Everton working on the costumes had to have a interesting plan in place for how we're going to progressively sort of work our way through that. And you went from having like some colors, some sort of like it was like fall colors a lot of the time, but it wasn't just like sort of black and white. And then so like as they become more witchy, it's like the goth sort of elements take over their wardrobe as well. And I was like, wait a second, they're in a Catholic school. Like they can't have that many variations of their outfit. I went to Catholic school. I know you're gonna get in trouble if your shorts are too long or your skirt is too short. They come around, they measure it, so it's kind of a pain. But yeah, they all have style. They, all of a sudden they all have many, many necklaces, which is cool. But I feel like the look of this film goes a long way in sort of its legacy and its sort of enjoyability, because yeah, like when are you going to see stuff like this anymore? Like the movie looks really good. It's not necessarily like overwhelmingly well shot, but it's not poorly shot. The location scouting was very thorough, because even for a movie that filmed in LA, that I knew filmed in LA, I'm watching the movie like I don't see anything that's really familiar. They went way out of their way to make sure that they could basically find locations that hadn't been already sort of, used throughout film and TV. The only place I really recognized was Leo Carrillo Beach, where they filmed the incantation scene, the spirit possession scene. And that's just because that beach has like that huge bluff side and that sort of like cave that you walk through. But realistically, like other than that, like all the stuff was like really well scouted. And so like it feels like it's in Los Angeles County without sort of being like, hey, we're on Rodeo Drive and we're hitting sort of like all the hallmarks of what you would expect from an LA film. So like the production design also, I think, did a really good job.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that actually, because growing up as a kid, I wouldn't have known it was LA, but as growing and watching it, I was like, this feels like it's supposed to be LA, but they're not pointing it out.
Yeah.
Is there a reason it is supposed to mask as something else? So it's kind of cool that it's just supposed to be kind of. I mean, I just gathered it was somewhere warm in the States because I was like, I don't know what month it is, but they all seem to be in kind of summer attire. But no, that's cool that you couldn't really tell where they had filmed it, other than the beach scene.
Yeah, because there's like some landmarks in LA that always like look good on camera, like that. I think it's the 12th Street Bridge that looks into the city. You see it in like car commercials and stuff. It's got those arches, and it heads into downtown, so you get the skyline. If you look down on downtown from when you're up on the mountain, like where kind of like the Getty is, you get the really nice LA skyline, assuming like the smog is not disgusting. But LA is like such a big place that like so much of the personality of the city is still there without going to all of these like hallmark locations. So yeah, credit where credit's due. They filmed in Hollywood for a lot of the sort of like witch storefront stuff. And then Fairuza Balk actually bought that shop, or a shop. I don't know if it was that one that they were filming in, but she was the owner of that magic shop until 2001. And I was like, how did she have money? Like, how much money did Fairuza Balk have at the time that this movie was coming out that she could just own and operate a magic shop for 6 years? I mean, she had managers that like did it, but like she really like believed in it. And I was watching some of the featurette interviews, like the press interviews, and the rest of the cast was like, oh, she was really into it. She was like reading the books and she was like super serious about it. And I think in the DVD commentary, somebody had mentioned, I don't know who it was, but somebody had mentioned that she was an actual like practicing witch. And so that had to be retracted because that wasn't actually true. She's like, no, I wasn't a witch. I just bought the shop. And yeah, so it's kind of cool that like she just bought into it and took it seriously, and that they were all sort of able to have enough fun with it to really like make the movie what it is. But I want to take a look at the trailer too, because I don't remember the trailer. Number one, this is a movie that sort of like was, I may have even saw it in theaters just based on the time frame, but it's definitely something that I watched on home video. And yeah, I haven't seen it. And now that we're, 30 years down the line, I think it's a good time to take a look at it. Before we get to the trailer, it's time for a quick commercial from the multiverse. Have you ever felt some invisible force you can't quite explain? Are you drawn to the macabre? Do you find yourself wondering what it's like to be part of a coven? Well, wonder no more with We Are Witches, the brand new virtual reality MMO where you can meet other burgeoning practitioners online in a safe and welcoming environment. You'll learn how to recite incantations, conjure spells, and you'll form your very own coven with other witches from around the world. So now you too can experience the power of Manon without the ritual blood sacrifice and possession. So pre-order We Are Witches today and get the craft skins to help customize your characters, because 5-finger discounts only work in the real world. And now, back to the show. Oh, this is the Shout trailer. Good enough.
To the other kids at St. Bernard Academy, they were the girls who didn't belong.
Whatever you do, stay away from them.
Why?
They're witches.
But after years of being on the outside,
Why'd you lie about me?
I don't want to go out with you again. Please, stop begging. It's pathetic.
4 girls
Skeet has
are
a good,
about
like,
to discover
douchebag face.
the dark side.
You ever heard of invoking the spirit? Black magic. We can make things happen. I mean, this is it. This is real.
Columbia Pictures welcomes you to the witching hour.
wig swap.
Check it out. Her spell is working. Sit.
The Craft.
Girls, watch out for those weirdos.
We are the weirdos, mister.
Yeah, good stuff. See, like even when they get off the bus though,
So
like
good.
their outfits are all like very sort of like distinct. Like none of them are like, hey, we're all like super powerful, which I think granted they do drink each other's blood at the park right after that, and that's when they sort of begin to become powerful. So I like seeing that kind of stuff. Like fashion in film is always a very interesting choice. And, you know, the 90s are a time where you're sort of transitioning from a sort of very distinct on-screen style and a very like fetishized style now with the 80s where it's kind of like hard to like carve out your niche as like as a 90s film fashion wise. And so I'm always happy to see when that does happen. I don't know. That was a good trailer though. It made me want to watch it again. I'll say that. Like
Yes.
it's a very solid trailer for what it is. Kind of a little bit of a. I mean, you see Skeet Ulrich go flying out a window. Like I don't put two and two together. Like I think you probably know that he doesn't have a happy ending in the movie. And like crazy that like he and Neve Campbell did this and Scream in the same year, right? So 96 was a big year for like teen horror in general. But I want to open the discussion back up a little bit more, and I want to start with Rachel True because this is like when she was cast, the character wasn't a black character. So when she was cast, they rewrote the character, and initially the plan was to have her be dealing with an eating disorder. So it was like, I think again, sort of men looking at like sort of like reverse engineering the problem. Like, what do teenage girls deal with? Well, you know, like this one tried to kill herself. Like this one's trailer trash. Like this girl's got an eating disorder. Like this girl thinks she's ugly, but it's like, it's Neve Campbell. Like, you know, she's not ugly. So yeah. And then to be one of the first two actresses cast in the film, and then to go back to the drawing board and be like, okay, the thing we want to do is include sort of like the racial element for her. And I know that she, as an actress, like at the time, was a little bit like hesitant with that. And then, you know, being that it's 1996 and we're sort of at a weird era in time where we're being sold this like post-racial America, to include that, I think like with the benefit of hindsight, looking back at it, I was like, oh, you know what? This probably was the case, you know? And to see that, I feel like what Rachel True said as well was that like she was hesitant about it at the time, but in hindsight, looking back on the project, she was happy that that was included. And I'm like, yeah, well, yeah, 30 years later, it feels like, you know, that doesn't feel that foreign, right? And so I'm just curious, like, how did you feel about the handling and the inclusion of that? Because like we said, like her parents like don't play a role. We don't see her home life. And the thing that they gave her to deal with was racism. Like she couldn't have an eating disorder being the black girl. She had to just be dealing with racism. Like,
Yeah. It's weird to me because I think another big reason why this movie has always meant a lot to me is because, you know, we always talk about how representation matters
yeah,
and being able to see someone who looks like you on screen when you know, 90s, 2000s, if you weren't fitting into a mold of what your race was, you were considered alternative. So I was always considered alternative, or that I adopted more of my white side. So getting to see her in this film always meant a lot to me growing up. And then with the racial stuff, I remember it always stings to hear that, and even watching it, rewatching for this, it's always the language that is used, but it feels like important also that they acknowledged that it was such a casual thing for certain people,
Yeah.
and maybe that it wasn't for all of that, but there's even a few microaggressions that happened even within the group towards Rachel that it probably wouldn't even be noticed at the time when you're in that situation. It does kind of suck that her main issue is just dealing with racism, and also that we don't know anything about her other than she's friends with her. I think it's that addition. If she was dealing with racism, but we got to see a bit of her home life, it would feel less like they had to address the fact that she was black, as opposed to she could just be black and she's friends with these girls. But also, given that it's the 90s, trying to give it some grace, and maybe a little bit of kudos for even wanting to tackle it in the way that they did. Um, and the care and what, Christine Taylor's character goes through. They didn't hold back on her either.
Yeah.
So there's a balance there, that's for sure. But I'm curious to hear what Josie thinks.
I mean, I literally was gonna kind of say the exact same thing as you. I think that it would have been one thing if we had any more of her, but we're given like nothing except like I guess the front of her house and her living room. Um, and so it's not that I think that it was a like nice that it's acknowledged. I also literally while watching it this morning said it was the 90s. They might have felt like they had to. But I had read that she had a different background before. And I also, when I was thinking about it, I don't know that that would have been any better necessarily. Um, but I think if we had just had an inch more of her at all, she doesn't even have a last name. Which I noticed I want to say her and Neve Campbell don't have last names in like the IMDb when I was looking. So like just I don't know, she's just kind of there. Um, and so for her to like that, I'm jumbling my words. I think if we had seen more, maybe it felt more. I want more from her character. But I don't really think I don't think they handled it bad. I feel really bad for Christine Taylor's the actress for having to say it because every time I hear her, I like physically I like cringe.
Oh no.
Makes me so uncomfortable. Um, ugh, but no,
Yes, such a like when I'm curious, like when writing the script, they're like, what are we gonna use here? Like, which derogatory term are we gonna decide on? And like that one, just like it lands in kind of like a weird, like filthy way because it's less familiar than other ones, and she says it with kind of like, I mean, she was just in like the Brady Bunch around that time too, so she delivers the line in the same kind of like bubbly way, and it's really like off-putting because of like the confidence that she delivers it with. Um, and so Rachel True, like she's 29, 30 when she's filming this, and she initially wanted to go out for the role, and her agent at the time was like, no, you're too old for this. This is a high school movie. Like, you're 30. What are you doing? And so she's like, all right, fine. I'm going to find a manager who will submit me for this film. So she ends up getting it. And then, just talking about how all of this is handled. So if you go to the IMDb just to look at the cast, she's not mentioned as one of the stars of the film. And then in the promotional materials, she is left out as being like a key component. It's like she's one of the four main characters of the film. So I feel like her character is both interesting because of her placement in the film, but also like her experience in the world. And like there's something that got removed from the conversation in one of the deleted scenes that didn't make the film, where I think it must be Nancy. She's snapping at her, saying she basically confirms that she's the only black girl at the Catholic school. And so like that in and of itself being like the only black kid in an all white school, what the dynamics of that do, I think it's more important because of that to have to like see her home life a little bit. And like she's sort of like friends with these people by association because she's not surrounded with other black people. And so it's like you're kind of like cherry picking a little bit, but it's not something that's entirely uncommon. Like in my high school, I think there's like 2 or 3 black kids in a class of like 250. So I think like in the entire school, it wasn't even that large of a number. But like her experience is like fairly real, but the texture to which that experience is told lacks almost like all of the nuance about like what those things actually mean. And so the handling of that is probably like the thing that the movie does the worst, right? And so I think, yeah, the more people have been able to maybe like articulate the language behind that over time, I think the more you can actually point to some things about like, oh, this is a weakness of the film. And I mean, credit to her for like fighting for this role though, and getting it. And then she was eventually like included in some of the cast stuff later. But like, yeah, like during the promotional tours, it's like, oh yeah, she's not one of like the main 3. It's like there's 4 people. She's 25% of like what the cast actually is. And like the rest of the cast had to kind of fight for her to be included in that. So it's like her experience like as a person is then reflected in her character in the story, and then that is then reflected in the promotional material and efforts of the film as well, which is just, it's really sad. I'm trying to think like
again, the 90s are rough.
Yeah. And unfortunately we probably haven't come all that far since the 90s, like 30 years later. Like the progress is not what it probably should be at this point. It's better, hopefully, maybe not even, but you know, yeah, at least there is some better avenues for representation now, and there is better language to have the discussions surrounding it. But probably still a long way to go, I'd say.
Her story reminds me so much of Ernie Hudson's in Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Like quite literally just like a parallel. I don't even love Ghostbusters that much, but I really love Ernie Hudson. And so we're going down a rabbit hole one day about his, and it's quite literally feels like the same thing. So
yeah, and that was what, 10 years before this?
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. Ghostbusters, what, 80? I don't remember, but definitely early to mid 80s. The second one was maybe 86. I don't know, but yes. So like even a decade removed, you have like a very sort of similar 4-person structure, and then it's like, oh yeah, same thing, kind of all over again.
Yeah.
So very unfortunate, but I think given all of that, she handled herself well. You know, she wasn't the one really sort of like making a fuss about the inclusionary stuff. Like she didn't detract from the press of the film by like forcing it. And I'm glad that the rest of the cast like stood up for her and were the ones that would be like, no, she's part of this. She needs to be included. And so like all the featurettes that I actually watched, she was part of the interviews. So I'm not sure like at what juncture she was like, you know, trimmed out, but I'm glad that at least what I got to watch, like she was included in that conversation. And, you know, I feel like with a movie like this, especially setting it at a Catholic school in LA and the kind of Catholic school that it's set in is saying certain things about money, which in real life, they filmed at a public school. And then they dressed it up as this private, fancy Catholic school. And so you have a character in Nancy who's like living in a trailer park, right? So I don't know how much like she can afford to go to that school. I know like just from my personal experience how much it cost. Like, I went to one of the like less expensive Catholic schools in the sort of general LA area. So the amount of money that is like sort of required of these young women to be able, like the family money that is required of them puts them like sort of in a certain social sphere. And like, granted, there are scales, there's financial assistance programs and things like that that can help you with this. I think the idea of setting it at a Catholic school versus a public school does sort of, I want to say, like, amplify some of the behaviors, because very early in the movie, like, all of the men that are introduced, I'm like, they're all douchebags. So like the writing is actually doing a very good job of like showing how shitty all of the men are right away. And so it's like, okay, that's very understandable. Like, definitely have experienced like those kinds of people in high school. And then also, like, granted, the movie is not really talking about money that much, right? Other than Nancy doesn't have it, and then they buy like a penthouse apartment for 175 grand, and I'm like, oh my god, could you really do that for 175 grand in 1996? Because like, it's gonna break my heart because nothing is that affordable now. But I think, you know, the idea that these are basically all kind of rich kids in this environment, I, like, there isn't really a good way to articulate it, but I think it actually makes a lot of sense given the sort of like the circumstances that are going on and the behaviors that we're seeing. Like, you know, Neve Campbell, it's like, oh, she's got these horrible burns, but she can be receiving this like state of the art experimental medical treatment that isn't just like, this is not even possible for someone of like a lower social standing, right? So the fact that like, oh, they say they don't have any money, so they have to like steal all the time. It's like, I don't know that they do. They might. They might just steal for fun though, because it's high school and they want to be rebellious, and like, you know, it's very punk rock to sort of, you know, go in and steal something. So like, I don't know, like in watching this recently again, like, does it feel sort of aware of its maybe like social classism?
That's actually like a fascinating take to me because I'm listening to you speak and realizing, oh, these are the differences between our two countries. Because I would have I would have never known that you had to pay to go to a Catholic school.
Yeah. A lot.
Okay, so that would not have translated to us here. So I just was like, yeah, they probably all are all poor because you could be of a lower class, poor, and go to Catholic school here. It doesn't matter what your social status is, and also the medical procedure we wouldn't
Right.
have to pay for here. So again, I didn't register that they would be of all money. But now that you're saying this, I'm like seeing the movie in a completely different light. I was like, wait a minute, how does Nancy go there? Did she get a scholarship? Is she secretly good student that we don't know about? Does she manage to get this? How did she get there? And I just never thought about that. It's just kind of blowing my mind that that information. So thank you for bringing that up because um I think it adds a great layer to the movie, and also that they probably are just doing it because it's kind of the cool thing to do to go to an edgy area and steal for whatever reason because they're
Yeah.
bored, as opposed to not being able to do it. Although again, Nancy probably can't afford, but the other three certainly can. My assumption is.
The way that I viewed it is that Nancy probably is 100% like a scholarship student, special circumstance, whatever. See that in a lot of movies, like Lady Bird or something, where you know they can't afford it, but like they're there, uh, basically on scholarship, and that also makes them an outcast already, especially in a rich environment. And so the way I saw it was that the other two girls, um, definitely probably were drawn to Nancy because she probably already stole. She was probably already really outspoken and like anti-authority, and they probably were like, amazed by that, which is probably another reason why they stick by her so strongly in the end, because they've only just met Sarah anyway. And also why they steal. Nancy probably introduced them to that. And like you said, it's that thrill. They're like, oh, this is really cool. I've never had to steal, you know. But yeah, that's part of something I've viewed it in the last few times I rewatched it, is it dawned on me that they were rich except for Nancy. So like even Rachel True's character, where we get there and we don't know anything about her, but when we go see her house the one time, I mean, it's like a giant door, so you can only assume she also lives in a mansion. So, but yeah.
Yeah, like her family has to be doing like well enough to send her to that school. And I mean, so this is 96. I'm trying to think around the time. So I was in high school in 98, and I know what the tuition was then. So for them to be at that school, probably like $3,000 to $5,000 a semester. Maybe it was like by the entire year. But
Wow.
right now the high school that I went to is 10 times more expensive than it was, and that was just the last time I heard. But we're talking about high schools where tuition is like $15,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm sorry. That just blew my mind. That's just like, wow.
Yeah, it's
Shocking.
nuts. Yeah, so like the affordable private high school is 15 grand, and now that's like trickled down, unfortunately, into like not even grade school. Our friends had a kid, and they were talking about like putting her into a gifted school that's up on like Mulholland. So it's like, ooh, it's in like the sort of like rich transitional area between the valley and like Beverly Hills. So it's like the whole like hillside that separates the two parts of the city. Um, and that school is like for a 6-year-old, right? And you're talking, yes, like 5 figures to make sure that your kid is in the gifted school. And
Damn.
so yeah, just that element of the movie alone was something that like I never paid attention to before. But then like thinking back on my life, I'm like, wait, this is a private Catholic high school. Like, okay, so this like requires a lot of money. It means all the guys are like super spoiled fuckers. And like we see that in their behavior, like very, very entitled brats. And so for Nancy's character, like realistically, her mom would probably have to work at the school in order for her to be able to go there, because it would be like she works, she gets a discount, plus they get on some sort of financial aid program, or those schools actually like nepotism. So if your sibling or parent or something had gone to that school, then it's like, okay, you get sort of like preferential treatment as well. And so her coming from a trailer park and her sort of like being very aware of the fact that she is like poor in comparison to the rest of the community that she is generally part of, obviously like informs a lot of her sort of like internal like personal character, and then a lot of her character decisions as well. And so I feel like that was like a kind of a big miss in terms of how they handled Rachel's character, because like all of that stuff is still at play with her too. And you obviously didn't have like someone who's actually black involved in the script development, I would say, because I think a lot of those things, like if this were written by a black woman, I think Rachel's the main character of the story. And I think she has maybe the most interesting character dynamic within the school, being the only black girl. So yeah, I think there's a lot there that just sort of is unable to make it to the actual screen because of like what we're actually sort of starting with. But yeah, a lot of like super interesting dynamics that I never would have really given a second thought having watched this in the past. And a horrible expose of the American education system as well.
Yeah. Jeez. That blew my mind.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, because it's like, yeah, you're sort of, because you're not even really buying the education. Like, granted, I feel like my high school had like a good college prep education. So by the time I got to college, it was like those early college courses were stuff that I had already covered in high school. So it was like, it preps you to take the test, but really like what you're buying is the exclusivity, right? That's what you're paying for, is that my kid went to a good school. Therefore, when they apply to colleges, they have this on their like their college resume ready to go. And so that's where like the sort of the money component comes in. And so it became like a weird thing too within like the LA area where like the prices were going up so high at all of the schools that I was like, how is anybody affording $20,000 for their kid to go to high school for a year? Like how rich are people? I was like, nobody I know is that kind of rich. And like, I was sort of like on the lower end of the like kids, like lower, sort of like middle class, but definitely not like, I'd gone to other people's houses and stuff. And it's like, oh, this is our Beverly Hills house. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, where's the other house? Right.
Wow.
So like being exposed to that environment personally kind of like was a way different way to view this movie than I had previously. Do you want to do some trivia right now?
Time for trivia.
All right, let's see. What do we got here? Okay, so question number 1. Robin Tunney obviously plays Sarah, but that was a producer's decision as she was initially cast to play which other character?
I think I heard that she wanted to be Bonnie. Is that who she wanted to be?
That is correct. She was
cast as Bonnie?
She was cast as Bonnie first. And then the producers were like, well, we think you'd be better as Sarah. And really, I think what that is they didn't have Neve Campbell on board yet. And then she's writing her TV show popularity. They get Neve Campbell to say yes. And so it's like, okay, well, she's also probably maybe even filming Scream around that time. And so maybe she's less available because she has to do press and stuff like that. So that's my guess, is that they got her late and they moved Robin over to the lead role. But yeah, so look at that. 1 for 1. Okay. So I'm going to go to you, Josie, on this. You'll get right of first refusal on this. Andrew Fleming, the director, insists that The Craft was blatantly ripped off by which Warner Brothers TV show? Also
So
about witches.
Something else ripped off The Craft? Is that what you're saying?
There was a TV show about witches that was very popular.
Is it Charmed?
It is Charmed. So Andrew Fleming said that he wrote a pilot based on The Craft for Fox, and that Warner Brothers was also very interested in that pilot. The pilot didn't get picked up by Fox, and then Charmed premiered the next year, and Charmed even uses the same cover of the Smiths song as the intro music for the show. And personally, Charmed used to play on TNT in the mornings, and so it was part of my like sort of morning ritual to get up before work, put on the TV, hear that intro music, and watch Charmed for like 20 minutes before I went to work. So I ended up seeing quite a lot of Charmed, but I never like watched it all the way through. And I'm surprised. Like it's basically, a very similar premise that gets a little bit even more like witch heavy. And I've driven by the house actually in Highland Park where they filmed it. So yeah, that's like, again, just like part of the LA landscape, but kind of crazy that it's like we're not even going to pay for the Smiths version. We're going to only pay for the cover version of the song and use the same exact one that was in The Craft. So pretty blatant. Okay, let's see. We've got third and final question on the board. Felicia, I'll give it to you first, and then we'll go from there. So this is the second time that Fairuza Balk portrayed a witch on film. The first being which 1986 movie?
I have to assume it's Return to Oz. Is it not?
It is not.
Oh, she's not a witch in that.
She's not
a witch in that. I don't know then.
Josie, do you have the steal?
I'm trying so hard to think. I literally, when I think of her, I only think of The Craft and Return to Oz, and so unfortunately, I feel bad because she's so cool. I don't know.
What year did you say it was?
1986.
1986.
I'm trying really hard to think.
I don't know.
It is the film called The Worst Witch, which also stars Tim Curry. It is a family musical where a very young Fairuza is like a Wizards of Waverly Place kind of witch, I guess.
Oh, I don't know this movie. The Worst Witch.
I don't either,
Okay.
but I found it, so added it to the trivia. Well, you got two, so and I'll give you a bonus one on the wheel, Josie, because it's your first time here. A couple little bits of interesting, well, at least one. We already talked about the other ones. So Robin Tunney wore a wig throughout the film. It's most noticeable when she switches to being blonde, but she does wear an auburn wig throughout the film because she shaved her head for Empire Records, which is another movie that I've covered on this show. And she also was in Supernova, which I covered at the beginning of this year. So she's been on the show quite a few times just in the last couple months. But also in Empire Records, her character slit her wrists. So oddly enough, like those sort of like character traits just like carried over into this. I guess like in the mid 90s, it was just like alt girls, slit their wrists kind of thing. And I mean, on the one hand, I sort of admire the inclusion of like suicidal ideation and action as something that is worth talking about, but like there's no depth to it. It's like, oh, you tried to kill yourself? You're so punk rock. Let's go rob a place. And then, there's no mention of any of that the whole rest of the time. And I feel like Empire Records maybe handles it a little bit better in sort of like the things that lead up to why someone would end up like attempting suicide. And like this movie doesn't have the vocabulary for it. And then the other thing is kind of a long thing, but on one of the official websites for the film, it was reported there's a lot of like spooky stuff going on. So the crew had to return to a location a second time to complete filming, interrupted by several weird occurrences that even caused the consultant, Pat Devon, to raise an eyebrow. So as the fog rolled in at midnight, the four actresses used actual Wiccan rites and language to invoke powerful forces. Then, as Fairuza Balk's character Nancy attempts to invoke the deity Manon, a flock of bats hovered over the set, and the tide dramatically rose, extinguishing the circle of candles. So the consultant said Manon is a fictitious creation for the film, but it sounds very close to Mananon, the Galaic god of the sea. So she said, luckily, we weren't all swept out to sea. And then director Andrew Fleming also is quoted saying, every time the girls started the ceremony, and only when they would start the ceremony, the waves would start coming up tremendously fast, pounding heavily. Then right when Nancy says her line, Manon, fill me, right at that exact moment, we lost power. It was a very strange thing.
Oh.
I mean, you pay to have the real like Wiccan consultant on set, and I mean, like, got your money's worth. Where's Pat? Where's Pat Devon?
Oh gosh! Wow.
Yeah, but in some of the
Noted.
like the featurette interviews, all the girls spoke very highly of Pat and saying that like she was like super great to them and that she took everything very seriously. And I mean, look, money's worth. I say money well spent. Okay, I did not for some reason preemptively pull this wheel up, but it's only a couple of clicks away. Okay, let me give that a twirl. We will see. Okay, good one. All right, Josie. So, what brand do you think would shamelessly sponsor this movie today?
I don't like the first thing in mind for some reason was Hot Topic.
There you go. Look, that's where they got to shop.
That's what I also thought was Hot Topic.
Where those girls would be shopping today. So funny. I literally don't.
No, that's a good choice. I don't even remember if Hot Topic existed in 1996, but it feels like the craft may have been a catalyst in a lot of the choices that Hot Topic had to offer. I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, so Felicia, if you could be one character in this movie, which character are you going to be and why?
Oh gosh. Because I'm selfish and I want all the powers, I would probably go for Sarah, who is like naturally gifted.
Yeah.
As much as I love Rachel True's character, I don't want to be called those names to my face.
That's fair. That is fair. And yeah, Sarah's the only one that like maintains her power at
Yeah.
the end. And it is such like a weird sort of like an exclamation point to put on the film that the other two come up to her house like, hey, sorry we tried to, kill you. Right? Like it's just so casual that like, that's what like catty high school girls do. Like we're just, not a big deal. We can still be friends, right? And by the way, like we don't really care about that. We're just curious if you have powers because we don't and we miss our powers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I said I hope she ended up finding good friends later on.
I hope so, right? Like get out of there.
A shame that it couldn't be those two, but
yeah, things were going so well. Okay, let's go. I'll go one more for you, Felicia, and then we'll go one more for you, Josie. Oh no, wait, this is Josie. Then back to Felicia. Oh, okay. Well, this is a fun one, but I mean, the movie's already got a great soundtrack. But what's a song that you think should be on the soundtrack for this movie that maybe isn't?
This is like for some reason anytime a movie features Don't Fear the Reaper, I automatically like it more. So I do feel if that were playing in like maybe the montage or maybe at the end, I could have seen it fitting. I just every time a movie has that song, I will automatically like it a little bit more than I would have before. And coincidentally, it's just in most movies that I like. So I'm gonna say that one.
Yeah, it's automatic bonus points.
I really, really like when movies have that song. So
yeah, that's cool. Good one. Felicia, do you have one like on the tip of your tongue? You look excited.
No, I was just for some reason also because of your cat. I was thinking of Bela Lugosi's Dead by
I love that song.
Bauhaus. I feel like it could fit in. It also was in another witch movie called The Hunger. Which is a Tony Scott movie. Susan Sarandon, Catherine Deneuve, David Bowie is in it.
Oh, wow.
So that song's also in it. I feel like it'd be fitting.
That's such a good answer.
Both good answers.
Yeah.
I'm gonna add that to my watch list though. I've never heard of that.
The Hunger.
Oh, that's so good.
That sounds really cool.
I would maybe I don't always have an answer for this, but I'd say maybe Black Magic Woman.
Oh, nice.
Thematically fits.
Yeah.
Right. It's just a song I like anyway. So, okay, let's go to one more off the board. So, what is an item, an object, or a piece of technology from this film that you would want for yourself, Felicia?
Oh gosh, is there any tech in this movie at all? Really? They don't have cell phones at this rate.
No.
I did like the, this is maybe a corny thing, but I like the jukebox that they get in their apartment. Nancy and her mom get. I was like, I feel like if I was also rich, that would be a purchase I would make. I'd be like, why not?
Custom jukebox. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's an indulgence.
Even though we don't need it. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I have enough to indulge, I would do something silly. If it's an actual object, otherwise my actual answer would be just to have the powers.
Yeah.
Maybe not of my own. I don't need to go that deep, but
don't need to be walking on water, but it would be nice to like change my hair color at will without going to a salon.
Exactly. If I could get new clothes when I wanted, I'll use it for that.
I liked that the first thing she did was like change her eye color. It was just like, what, nobody noticed. It's like I looked closely and I'm like, did she? I was like, I can barely tell. Did they give her contacts? Did they just like darken it in post? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like at least like change your nail color or something where it's like a lot more tactile and you can see it. That'd be a fun one. Okay. Well, we've made it through the wheel. Now we just go to more or less, and you get to tell me just the one thing that you want more of in the movie and the one thing that you want less of in the film. And Josie, I'll start with you.
Well, the thing that I want more of, would have wanted more of, is just more of them being friends, more of them being witchy together. Like we get a little montage and some really fun little moments, but I just love that part of the movie. Um, that like when they're all in that room and they're watching Bewitched, which is so corny. I would have loved more of that. More of them, reciting spells in a field of flowers. More of them just, looking shopping in the witch store, just doing little things before kind of like shit hits the fan and everyone hates each other. I would have really liked just a little more friendship because I think that that's just my favorite part of the movie. Is when they're actually like a coven. They're actually a group of friends. Um less I don't know. I don't know what I want less of. That's a
That-
really hard.
That's fair.
Ugh.
More friendship, less infighting.
Yeah, like I know there has to be conflict. I'm not saying that. And I like
Yeah.
the end. Love the snakes and the whole I love everything about the end. I just also really like the lightheartedness of it, which you brought up earlier when we were talking about how there's not a lot of lighthearted witch movies or shows. So I can't think of what I want less of though. I'm having a hard time, even though I just watched it.
That's fair. Well,
Sure there's-
let's ask Felicia, and then if something inspires you, you let us know.
Yeah, I agree with all the things you want more of. I also want more of those. And of course, I think we can all agree we want more of Rachel True's character, but I actually also wanted more of the witch shopkeeper and
Mm.
kind of more on her. I don't know how they could have involved her more other than uh them going to the store more. I do wish that they hadn't been stealing from her shop because she seems like an independent business owner. So I don't know why they're stealing from her, but I wanted more of her because she seemed really, really cool. And the shop just looked really cool. Less of as much as I like Skeet Ulrich and Breckenmeyer, I could have done without them, to be honest. I think there was just a little bit too much of their characters. And I get that there has to be that. It's a teen movie and, the romance or sexual tension. But I was like, I don't think we need as much of them in this film. It should be more on the girls
Yeah.
for me.
And with as much as like Skeet sort of I don't know, like he's a pretty good villain in the fact that like his curve starts from like douchebag to now he's sort of like being a manipulated puppy dog kind of character, and then like that spills over into like sexual assault. Like I think that's a good enough villain for the story where you don't necessarily have to like break up the band in order to like go beyond that. And then I also had this question like what were Nancy's intentions when she actually went to go confront him? Because she shows up and then she's like, let's have sex. And so there's like pointing to a relationship that existed between them, maybe like before she got too goth or she became scary and whatever. And so she's like sort of back in that pool. And it doesn't seem like until she gets caught, it didn't seem like her actual intention was just to like scare him and freak him out. And so I was like, I'm not sure what her intentions were, but the rest of the girls are going there, obviously, assuming that she's going to hurt him. And it's not until they get there that sort of like the deception is revealed and then she actually hurts him. So I was like a little bit sort of confused by that because she seems so pissed when she first is like, I'm going to go do this thing. And then she gets there and it's like this guy who you despise, who you've told us the entire movie that you despise, who sexually assaulted your friend is someone that you're like going to try to drunkenly hook up with right now. It seems like a weird sort of out of character decision for her at that point. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it's that's one of the weaker spots of the writing too, because I over the years of watching this, I still don't know if I think she's coming at it with anger, but does she still have a crush on him? Probably,
Yeah.
maybe, and was trying to gauge what the situation was, and probably knew that it was going to go south and was prepared to come with violence, but wanted to see if maybe there was a chance that she could maybe cast a spell on him to turn things around, and have him be interested in her. I'm not really sure. I think she wasn't thinking straight, but I think it's just an error in the writing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, yeah. I guess at that point was the point where I'm just like, it is really kind of unfortunate that this story of like womanhood and sisterhood is derailed by this douchebag of a guy.
Mhm.
And that
Yeah.
like a guy is the wedge that gets between them. But that actually brings me to something else I wanted to ask you about. So Menon is referred to like in the masculine a lot throughout the film. And it wasn't at first. First it's like Menon, and then it becomes like he. And so given that this is the story that it is, I found it like an interesting choice to be like that the deity that they worship has like a masculine pronoun attached, because when they're talking about being in the grass and the air and the water and all that, I'm like, this sounds like Gaia, and Gaia is the female like earth force. So like I found it interesting, and obviously it was a sort of fictional creation by the writers, but to have Nancy like be sort of, I mean, she is kind of crazy in this. She ends up in a nut house, and she is very like aggressive when she gets power. But to have her like obsessed with having power, and then that being the power of this male deity, do you think that the script actually had the intent of that being like important, or did that sort of happen just sort of like the way that God is often referred to as a he, right?
Yeah. You can go first if you have something.
I don't. I'm like thinking about it. I like had not even thought of that.
Yeah, it's something I had thought about over the years because I don't think I picked up on them saying he as a kid. And I just assumed that it was a female god that they were worshiping. Um, but I think I don't know if it was the intention, if it was consciously their intention to be like, this is why they end up, in quotes, evil because they're being taken over by this male god. I think that's definitely what happens and why things go south like that, and why it's an obsession with power as opposed to using it for uh what they were originally using it for, just to make their lives a little bit better and for better things. And I think that's why kind of the shopkeeper kind of warns them on, this is not the best person to be invoking right now, or best spirit. But I don't know that part of me thinks that in the writing they probably didn't know, but the person on set must have caught on that, and maybe worked with them on that. So I don't think it was done accidentally, just from knowing the knowledge. But if I didn't know anything about what happened on set, I probably would just think it was not consciously done.
Yeah, I guess like I'm just curious because like obviously the shop owner is a woman, and she like probably is the most knowledgeable like witch that we see on screen. We know that Sarah's mom was also a witch, so it's like it seems like there's like a kind of like divine femininity throughout the film that is then supplanted by this desire to like be, you know, possessed by the spirit of Menon. And so I just found that like, yeah, it's like maybe there's something here, maybe there's not. But I found it interesting because if I'm looking at it as a parallel to what's going on with Skeet Ulrich's character, it would make sense because it's like the thing that divides them is like the masculine energy. it isn't something that's necessarily like happening like internally with them. It is this external masculine energy that is like making its way into the group that is actually messing things up for them.
Yeah.
And I don't know that like that is like super apparent. Like am I reading too much into it? But I don't know, maybe not. All right, well, let's go to Critics Corner and we'll find out if anybody else brings their masculine energy to this discussion. I'm sure we'll see multiple people. We'll see. Okay. We've got a Metascore of 55, so ultimately not bad. There's a lot of green on the board, but we always start at the bottom. We've got a 38 from the San Francisco Examiner with no name attributed to it. It says, despite heroic efforts of 4 promising young actresses in the starring roles and a nifty premise, the movie is a mess, so incoherently plotted that dramatic tension doesn't have a chance to build.
Wow.
Yeah. Sounds like a man to me. Did not put a name on that review.
Scared.
Anonymous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't necessarily agree. I agree that the young promising actresses all do a great job. The premise is good.
Mhm.
The movie's not really what I would say is a mess. I've seen significantly messier. The plot, I don't even think is messy. I think it's just maybe it's missing some things that could have made it better. But I don't think it's
Yep.
messy. And I think the dramatic tension is maybe foreshadowed a little too heavy. Like as soon as Sarah shows up, like there's a sort of immediate tension with Nancy, and like they both like the same boy, and it's like this is what guys think high school girls like are focused on. And so like yeah, I get the messiness of that, but logically, from at least the perspective of the story setup, that tracks.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's we'll skip over the 40. Actually, no. This is Rita Kempley. It's only 2 points higher on the board, but we'll go with it anyway. It says, despite all their toil and trouble, the tale leaves us more bothered than bewitched. Oh, there's a lot of witch puns in one pull quote there, Rita. Didn't like it either. Okay, let's go to the mid-range. Roger Ebert's on the board, so we're going to read from the Chicago Sun-Times. Gave it a 50, so that's a 2 out of 4 on the Ebert scale. Said, the movie's failure is one of imagination. It tilts too far in the direction of horror and special effects when it might have been more fun to make a satirical comedy about punk teenagers. I don't feel the movie lacks imagination, but I do feel that it maybe lacks enough character depth as it
Yeah.
begins to accelerate into like the horror territory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love 90-minute movies, but I'm
Mhm.
also the type of person that's like, if the runtime like is justified and it makes the movie better, then I'm for it. So sometimes there are movies where I'm like, give me another like 25 to 30 minutes and let me see what you're gonna do with that.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely could have fit that
Yeah,
into this runtime. I don't think we need to be like, hey, let's see their origin story from when they were babies. But, some level of information, even if it's just like little lines that they're saying, we don't have to spend time in individuals' homes. It really could have gone a long way. But then again, that obviously wasn't their focus for this story at all.
yeah. Well, that's unfortunate, but let's climb the ladder. And we've got TV Guide magazine and Variety both on the board with 60s. So Josie, you tell me, you want to hear from TV Guide magazine or Variety?
Variety's been saying a lot of weird stuff lately, so let's see what they had to say about the craft.
Okay. Emmanuel Levy says 4 gifted and attractive actresses struggle hard to lend a semblance of dramatic coherence to the craft. A neatly crafted film that begins most promisingly as a black comedy a la Heathers, but gradually succumbs to its tricky machinery of special effects. Still, young audiences, particularly women, are likely to connect with this energetic high school tale about the vengeful empowerment of rebellious misfits. better than some of the previous ones, but yeah.
Questionable opening, but
Yeah, definitely.
I guess
Yeah.
the intent is different.
It's like, I enjoyed this movie because the actresses are good looking,
Yeah.
but I did not enjoy the movie for all of these other reasons. All right. Emmanuel Levy, Variety.
Assumption that, but don't worry, girls will like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I did Debs to open the month, and one of the reviews that I read in that was talking about uh like this movie is not for the male gaze. It's like, yeah, it's not. Like that's not what this movie is about. So
Yeah.
like we were just joking, and it's like, yeah, don't bring your libidos to the party for this one, fellas, because that's not what this movie is for. But yeah, no real surprise, unfortunately, from Variety. So we'll go to a couple of 67s we have on the board with Entertainment Weekly and the Austin Chronicle. So Felicia, who do you want to hear from?
Let's do Austin. Hopefully they
Austin
have something
Chronicle.
better to say.
Mark Savlov, a frequent flyer in Critics Corner, says it's Teen Witch for the 90s. Dark, brooding, dangerous, and come to think of it, a lot like high school.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess short and sweet. Okay.
Yeah.
We've got we got the New York Times in with a 70. This is Stephen Holden says a surprisingly skittish fable of adolescent powerlessness, grandiosity, and the nursing of psychic wounds. As the witchcraft escalates, the movie exchanges its psychological acuity for garish special effects that hammer home a ponderous warning to once and future witches: be good or else. Better articulated, I think, and sort of echo some of the things that we've said. I don't think the special effects are that bad in this movie, though.
No, I don't
Yeah.
think so either.
It really could. There's a lot of CGI use, but like when I was watching it this morning, I was like, I can think of like so many other movies that came out around the time with way worse CGI.
Yeah, I mean, they used it like fairly sparingly, right? Like, okay, the scene where they all like fly in her dream is like, obviously that's very sort of like very heavily noticeable. But I think for the, they did a lot of practical stuff with like the lift in the floor for the light as a feather, stiff as a board thing. Obviously, the sort of like the edit with the wig switch, like it looks weird. Like you can tell it's fake when you're watching it, but I think they did it. They did it as practically as they could in that moment. And then a lot of the other stuff, like the flying stuff, or like the scene where you sort of see her like toes dragging across the ground in the bedroom, like they used a lot of wires and they did what they could. So yeah, I don't feel the special effects are particularly bad in this film. Like even by today's standards, I'm like, I would take this over a lot of sort of like CGI slop that I've seen. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, we've got 275s on the board to close it out. So Josie, oh wait, no, you picked Variety, right? Oh no, yes, it's your turn. Felicia picked Austin. So Josie, you get the San Francisco Chronicle or the New York Daily News.
Let's go San Francisco.
All right, Mick LaSalle, another frequent flyer, says the young actresses are superb, and they make an appealing, believable group of friends. End quote.
Wow. Well,
look, these are the standards that I brought to the movie. The actresses are good, and I believe them. 3 out of 4 stars.
That's so funny. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's always nice to have like a pull quote that's at least like slightly articulated. Too many people lean into the like, oh, this is a witch movie, so I'm going to use witch puns or dumb stuff like that. Which, look, you can have fun with, but like these aren't letterbox reviews. These are pull quotes from like full newspapers, right? So you would hope the standard would be a little bit higher, but I digress. Let's hear some gateway drug movies because Craft is, like we said, a sort of cult favorite that a lot of people hold very close to their hearts. So what's another movie maybe that's like The Craft or that is more popular that would convince somebody as a recommendation to push play on The Craft?
I don't think this movie's like The Craft, but I'm thinking of like alt girls in high school, or in this case, they just are graduating high school. And I think this movie is definitely more loved. But I think of Ghost World,
Okay.
which I think is it also set in California, Los Angeles,
Oh,
somewhere.
no.
I don't know, somewhere in the States. But thinking of girls who are kind of on the outskirts of their classmates and the way they navigate things and like friendships there. So I think if you're looking for films about girls who are in quotes alternative, that might be one that could convince someone to at least enjoy the fun in the craft and good fashion in both those movies.
No, no, good points. All right, Josie, what do you got for us?
Well, oddly enough, I'm thinking of one that is a newer film,
That's fine.
but the first thing that came to mind, and something that reminds me of this, not necessarily in theme, is Lisa Frankenstein. It came out a couple years ago. I feel like one of the only people that liked it. I saw it twice in theaters. But when I watched it, I thought about the craft. Just in kind of like edgy girl. I think that Lisa's character would have like really loved to have been a part of this girl group. Um, and so while they're not like similar in theme, I think that they're like sister movies. And just being for girls and girls who just I don't know, want to be cool, goth girls, maybe girls who want to be goth that aren't. But yeah, that's the first movie that came to mind, and I think that maybe if you watched that and liked it, that you could be convinced to also like the craft.
No, I think
Nice.
that's fair. I mean, unfortunately, the one that I feel like is most thematically connected and structurally connected is Lost Boys. You
Okay.
get the fashion
Oh yeah.
stuff, you get the group of like it's not witches in this case, it's vampires, you get the new kid coming
Mhm.
into town and power struggle for leadership, and so a lot of like those similar things set in high school or like high school adjacent. I don't know, the dude looks like he's 40, but like there are high school kids in the story at least. And I'm like, yeah, the other one would probably be Jennifer's Body, because like if you want like good
Um,
fun kind of like teen horror, but also like that movie I think centers around like she's assaulted and killed and then comes back, so it sort of looks at the notions of powerlessness and revenge and stuff like that. So I think that's also a very good fun choice if you want to sort of embody it, but it leans more heavily into its horror elements.
Yes.
yeah. Look at these are all good choices.
Yeah, we got good rec.
I like Lost Boys did not enter my mind, but that's such a good example, actually.
Yeah.
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 All I've actually never seen the one that Felicia mentioned, but I'm like making a mental note of all the movies you keep talking about.
I feel like the addition of Lost Boys with like the style of the vampires leans very
Mhm.
heavily into like this sort of goth coded nature of it.
Yes.
So like yeah, just the cover, like they all have different leather jackets, and I'm like, yeah, that's probably the one that like makes
Yeah.
the most sense. But yeah, Jennifer's Body is a really good fun option as well, and female centric. So
Mhm.
you can take your pick. I think at least this month watch Jennifer's Body, and then some other month you can watch Lost Boys. Okay, well, we've come to the point in the show where I'm going to let you ladies have a chance to plug whatever it is that you're working on right now. So, Felicia, why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, I have my own podcast called Seeing Faces in Movies, where essentially each month I focus on like a different director or a cinematographer and then do 4 films with 4 different guests on and talk about, the artist stamp on those films. So I'm about to start a series on Jean Renoir, which feels very different from the craft, but I have a lot of great different tastes in films. So that's that, and then I'm also do like a co-hosting of an online film club. It's actually based mostly in LA. So for people in that time zone, if you want to join, it's called Arroyo Film Club. We meet Monday nights. So feel free to come and just chat with a great group of people about movies. We've got the, Instagram and all of those, and you can find all the information through a quick little Google search. So yeah.
Cool. And you just came back from like a small hiatus break, vacation.
Mental vacation.
Well, I look forward to the new month, right? The new theme, director in focus. And yeah, I've been on that show. Good stuff. It's not nearly as long as this show, so if 2 hours is not necessarily your cup of tea, Felicia's got you covered. And very thoroughly so. Always like very educational and informative. Josie, I know you got something in the works.
I do.
You got some stuff happening. Why don't you tell us about it?
Oh yeah, my feature length directorial debut comes out premieres at my local art house theater on March 20th. So I directed it alongside my now husband who wrote the film. It's called Somnia. And yeah, we shot it last summer, and wrapped it up in like September. And yeah, it's premiering at our local theater, so it's kind of surreal that it's like happening, because I don't know, it's like one of those things where you're like, oh, I want to make a movie, and I did. So
Wow.
it just
Major congrats.
feels really surreal to have found people who wanted to be a part of it, who wanted to kind of, I have friends on Twitter who helped fund it. And that's another thing. Like, these are people that I've never met in real life. And yeah, I sent out screeners to a few of them, and like, it's really nice. It's been really nice to see people just like so supportive, especially the ones that don't know me in real life. So I'm very excited. I will be talking about it with on this podcast at some point. I've got a couple of other people lined up to talk about it with. We're also going on our local news next week to to promote the film locally. I've got one of my Twitter friends is flying out to see it. So it just all feels really.
Wow.
So yeah, we have an Instagram page, a Facebook page, and then I share about it and talk about it a lot on my Twitter, so, or X, whatever people want to call it. But yeah.
Well, as you should. And yes,
yeah,
congratulations. I know you and I have some like scheduling to handle, but the plan is that you're going to be our filmmaker in focus this month here on the show. So that's the idea. And as long as we can as long as we record it before like the last 2 days in the month, I can turn it around and make sure it gets released in March.
It's very exciting. So no. But yeah, you can our production company is called Forced Oval Productions. So if you want to watch the trailer and you haven't, it's on YouTube. And then it's just called Somnia Movie or Somnia Film, on all the other social medias. So.
Well, that's great. I wish you the best of luck, especially with the in-person premiere, because that's going to be a lot of fun. And look, it's not easy to make a movie. You've done a lot of the hard stuff already. So congrats. I'm looking forward to watching it and to talking with you about it. I will make sure that I put up links to the trailer, the YouTube page, any other accounts you want me to share. Both of you, of course. I can easily grab your podcast from somewhere, but any other links that you want me to share, please just let me know. Shoot me a little message, and I'll make sure to include that in the full show notes. But thank you both so much for being here. This was a lot of fun. I'm really glad that we got to do the craft. I'm glad that I decided to, take a chance at the last minute and just be like, let's see. There's got to be people that like this movie, right? And here we are.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me. It was great chatting with you too, Josie. It's great to hear that you don't have to, like a film like this, you can watch like as an adult and get still so much out of it. So I was really happy to hear that. But thanks for having us on.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. This has been a blast.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I will talk to both of you soon. Thanks to Josie and Felicia for coming on the show and for sharing in the celebration of the craft, which is so near and dear to so many people. It is kind of wild to think that the movie is 30 years old at this point. I mean, I know I talk about a lot of movies that are in their 20s and 30s, but something about this one being 30 years old really hit a little too close to home. That being said, it was a really fun discussion and a fun rewatch on top of that, so if you haven't seen it, now's a great time to check it out. And speaking of checking things out, you can see the trailer for Josie's new movie, Somnia, on YouTube, which I'll put the link in the show notes. And you can check out Felicia's new series on Jean Renoir on your favorite podcast platform, but the links will be up for that in the show notes as well. And of course, a big thank you to everyone that took the time to listen to the show. I know I say it all the time, but I say it because I mean it. There are a ton of options when it comes to your podcast choices. So the fact that you've taken the time to listen to this one means a lot to me, and I hope that I can keep giving you the kind of show that is worth your time. So until next time, be good, do good, watch movies. Take care, everybody.